What is going on, YouTube people? Neo Cards and Comics here. We have the list. That's right. CGC has the list public. We got another update from them. This released on Wednesday early evening. I was going to do another hot drop on this and just put it up immediately, but I already did 2 videos yesterday, so I figured I would save this one for today and not completely carpet bomb my video feed. So, what did they come out and say? They have come out with the process for what to do if you own one of the books in question, and they have given us the full list. It is 350 comic books in total. I have seen estimates. I talked to Automatic Comics. He put it at around $2 million total dollars, give or take. I've seen that number floating around a little bit on the CGC boards in that range. I could tell you 2 books by themselves are about almost $500,000 on their own. We'll dig through the list here in a second, but they put out the full list. This is everything I'm guessing that person submitted. They also discussed that they have hired independent investigators that are looking into all this. They've already made significant improvements to processes. They don't say what those are. I don't necessarily expect them to, because they don't want that information out there for people to try to work around whatever new loopholes may exist. Before we dive into the list, and a very important thing to talk about that has not been addressed, and I do think that this is something that they need to comment on, or at least say that they are working on. There has been that video and videos floating around of how easy it is to crack the CGC case. And once they get this little hiccup behind them, and by little it's big, they need to address the elephant in the room. That is how simple it was for that person to get the case cracked open. All they had to do was use a heat gun and some basic solvent, and it basically looked like the book wasn't even touched. And they have gone on to do other additional videos on that over on the Immaculate Comics YouTube channel, so you can go ahead and check that out if you want to see kind of what he has cooking over there. But it was literally cooking. Pretty scary stuff on how easy that case was to get open. They have got to get that addressed. So CGC drops, if you have one of these books, how to contact them, kind of what the process is going to be. You'll send it back to them. They will reevaluate the book, regrade the book. If everything is all in order, they're going to reslab it and issue it a new certification number. If things are not in order, then they are going to work with you on basically buying the book back. Be curious to see how that process goes, what they use for value. Do they go off purchase price, fair market value, whichever one's the highest? Those will all be interesting questions. I am sure if they are smart, they will be very generous with this, because the last thing they need is someone going on the CGC board saying how they lowballed them. So I am assuming they are going to go above and beyond for the customer here and not try to nickel and dime people, but you never know. Let's talk about the list as a whole. I'm not going to read through every single book or anything crazy like that, but there are some things I want to point out. There are some big boy books on here. There's an Amazing Fantasy 15 on here. That alone is a monster. There's a first appearance of Iron Man on here. Bunch of Spider-Man books. I think, because there's a lot of one-offs on here, my blind guess is the one-offs probably are more likely to be legit. The ones that there are crazy runs of, and we'll talk about them, I have a feeling are more likely to be messed around with, because he clearly figured something out, or she figured something out about how to not necessarily manipulate the case, because that could happen with any of these, but whether it's liquidity, high census counts, that these would be easier to slip through. Whatever the case might be, they seem to target a handful of very particular books. And if I had one in that run, I would be concerned. I've checked this list already. My Hulk 181 is safe. I need to check my New Mutants 98. I have not done that yet. but this is mostly high grade, expensive books. There are very few stuff on here like in the $1,000 range. Most of the things in question, especially the massive runs of stuff, are multiple thousands of dollar books. So right off the get, one of the biggest ones on here we see is ASM 194, a boatload of CGC 9/8s. I actually did the math on this. There are 56 blue label 9/8s on ASM 194. Now, if you're not familiar with that, that is the first appearance of Black Cat. I actually own this book in like a 9.2, I think, maybe a 9.4. Extremely tough grade. It's an all black cover. It is ridiculously tough to get in a 9.8. And when you look at the census count, let me give you a little zoom here. There are only 544 in a CGC 9.8 Universal out of the almost 11,000 copies on the census. This person has 5%. I'm sorry, 10%. It was 10% of the CGC census on their submission list in 9/8s. There are 540 9/8s on the census. There are 56 on this list. So just slightly, ever so slightly over 10% of the 9/8 CGC census on ASM 129 is in question. So if you own a 129, you better go check it. Now, I assume some of these are the switcheroo book and then him sending back in the original clean copy that he pulled out to get a 9/8 back on that book. So maybe not all 56 of these are fraudulent. Maybe it's half and half, because they have to have a 9/8 to start with. Then you need the lower grade. They're going to pull the 9/8 out of the 9/8 case, put the lower grade in the 9/8, send it off to get reholdered, and then resubmit the clean 9/8 and hope it gets another 9/8. And maybe they just keep reusing that same book over and over and over and over and over again. And I'm guessing maybe that's what was happening here. So 10% of the CGC population on a 9/8 Black Cat is on this list. If you own that book in a CGC 9/8, you are going to want to double check this list. Moving along, the other big one that was on here, ASM 238. There's not quite as many of these. I didn't count these ones. There's probably about 20 or 30. That is the first appearance of Hobgoblin. This one is one that has a tattoo in it. The thought process here is that he would be buying ones that do not have the tattoo in it, swapping them, and then sending it back in to get it labeled in a blue label, even though it is missing the tattoo, exponentially increasing the value. The other massive one, ASM 252 is on here. There's a handful of those, not a ton. There's about 20 Hulk 181s in varying grades. Not 9/8s, obviously, because that's, there's not a ton of those out there. But like 9s, 9/4s, 9/2s, 7/5s, 8/5s. I would be very skeptical of all those 181s. So if you own a 181 and like a 6/5 or better, double check this list. The other massive one is ASM 300. This list is huge for ASM 300s. There are 86 ASM 300s in a universal CGC 9/8 blue label on the fraudulent list. There's also some 9/6s and 9/4s mixed in here. I'm just talking 9/8s. The total census for an ASM 300 in a blue label CGC 9/8 is 1,543. This is about 5% of the ASM 300 9/8 census. Just in ASM 300 and 194, those books roughly sell for about $3,000 a pop. That's almost, actually probably over, because I just estimated at 3K. ASM 300 does a little bit more than that. And you also don't know when he sold. If they were sold prior to today, they would have been a little bit higher. That stuff has come down. But regardless, at $3,000 a book, just on those two alone, that's almost $500,000, or actually probably over $500,000, because I'm kind of rounding down a little bit. So that right there is 1.5 million, or I'm sorry, 0.5 million just in those two books. And we haven't even looked at 181s, etc. I did not do the math for the entire thing. Those two were just very easy because they sell for similar prices, and there was a ton of them on there. There's a couple giant size X-Men #1, some Fantastic Four keys, a couple Hulk 340s, some Iron Man 1s, Journey into Mystery 83s. There's the Marvel Secret Wars #8, Canadian price variants. These would be pretty pricey. I would be questioning every one of those. Obviously, you're questioning everything on the list, but you get my point. New Mutants 98, I still need to double check mine. That's the one book I have not looked at yet. A couple X-Men 266. All these Mark Jewelers, I would be very skeptical of. But like I said at the top, there is a lot of kind of 1 or 2 offs on here. I'm not as concerned about those, but these ones that have massive, more than 5 on here, that's a red flag. So you're looking at Secret Wars 8, Incredible Hulk 340, Incredible Hulk 181, some Fantastic Four stuff. Definitely if you own an ASM 300 or 238 or 194 in a CGC 98, check this list. Mark Jewelers, check this list. Crazy, crazy stuff. And unfortunately, this is the one that we know about. Who knows if there are other people out there that were doing the same thing that just haven't been found yet. And then, like I said at the top as well, they need to address how easy it was for that case to come open with just a heat gun and a couple little tools that you have laying around the house and a little bit of glue. That, to me, is almost a scarier thing than this list of 350 books. So pull this up. I will link to this in the description of the video. Hit Control F and start searching for your cert numbers to see if they are on the list. If by chance you have something on here and you reach out to CGC and they give you any runaround at all, feel free to let me know. I will gladly take a look at that. Curious for your thoughts and comments, as always, down below. We will catch you boys and girls on the next one. Peace.